We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
They changed the name of the high school and all James Woods can say is, ooh, a piece of candy. 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 When a ball turned into a vampire, all James Woods could say was, ooh, a piece of candy. 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 When he became Peter's best friend, they sat around the house and said, ooh, a piece of candy. 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 And you know that James Woods practices lines real well, but everything that he reads becomes real hard to spell. Everyone tries to help him, but the words just won't come out. There's only one thing he can think of, and it's what comes out his mouth. Ooh, a piece of candy. 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 When he comes out of his house, the women scream and shout. Ooh, a piece of candy. 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 When they know that he's next to the best of them all, when he says, ooh, a piece of candy. 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 Reese's Pieces on the floor and watch him come a saying, ooh, a piece of candy. 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 And you know that James Woods practices lines real well, but everything that he reads becomes real hard to spell. Everyone tries to help him, but the words just won't come out. There's only one thing he can think of, and it's what comes out his mouth. Ooh, a piece of candy. 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 When he comes out of his house, the women scream and shout. Ooh, a piece of candy. 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 Ooh, a piece of candy.
Fucking thing sucks.
Hola and Tito Puente to you and yours. It is I, Metric Man. Always never can get situated in this chair. My little friend here. What the hell? Why he's everywhere? It's like, the fuck, let's put you right there. We have Desert Mantis in the house. What's going on? Steve Wolfred, good to see you. And Miguel is here. The quantum computer, the quantum 5000 computer. And who else is in the mix? We got Max Sarge. Good to see you. And I believe that's it for right now. I'm sure people will start filtering in. They're used to these like 30-minute countdowns. Hey D, good to see you. Around the World with D and Friends. She's going to be on in about 3 hours, I believe, 9 o'clock Eastern. And all that specific. Wait a minute, what the hell? What's going on here? What the French toast? My shit's gone to shit. Here we go. All right. So tonight, my guest needs no introduction, so I'm not going to do it. Fuck it. Wait a minute. What are we doing? I can't do nothing, Willie. Willie, what's going on? Willy Bragg in the house. What's up, my man?
Hey, what's up? How are you?
I am. We were talking about tech nightmares before the show. Hey, we got Chuck's Intergalactic UFO show. He's going to be premiering that show on Friday night. It's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I heard about that. What time?
I'm not quite sure what time. Maybe he'll let us know in the chat, but it's definitely going to be Friday night, and he's been working on this show for a while, and it looks fantastic. It's gonna what Desert Mantis says. I don't recognize Willie without his 65-second countdown. We love your countdowns, Willie. The double countdown, it's like the psych out. It's like 30 seconds. And then, nah, motherfucker, you got 65 more seconds, bitch.
Yeah, it's because of my sloppy producing.
No, you don't have sloppy producing. You do very well. You're more content based than you are tech based. See, I'm the total opposite. I like to make my shit look pretty, but then again, I just it's empty calories, as they say. You know, once you get on here, once the show starts, people are like, I stuck around for this. What the hell is this? Yeah. So, how you been, man? Have you survived the storm? Okay.
Oh yeah. The worst of it for us, Central North Carolina, was a little bit of heavy rain. But it's a different story in the western part of the state where the mountains, up in the mountains.
Yeah, we've actually got some footage of that. This is drone footage from Money Market. I don't know what the site this is. This is the first thing I came up with. But yeah, so let's take a look at this. Is in Asheville, North Carolina. And this is in the western part of the state, you said?
Yeah, it's about. I live just outside of Raleigh, so it's probably about a 4-hour drive on Highway 40 to Asheville.
I see. A lot of rural areas out that way, and it's a lot of places hard to get to anyway in decent weather. And it said roads and pathways were caked in mud after water started receding. They just had massive floods. They're still underwater over there.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful part of the state. I went to a wedding in Hendersonville, which is probably about half an hour drive south of Asheville. And I went, it was about almost 30 years ago. I couldn't believe how beautiful the mountains were. So to see what happened here recently with the hurricane is really sad.
Yeah, and when you hear hurricane, you think, coastal areas just getting hammered and stuff, and they do, but these storms do go inland, and this one was a particularly powerful storm. It was a Category 4 when it hit Florida there in the Big Bend area. And I believe Katrina was also a Category 4 when it hit too, and all the devastation it did. But New Orleans is a different story. It's perpetually under sea level all the time, and they have pumps allegedly in the city that are supposed to take care of the flooding, and like 100 and something pumps around the city. And when it only like a handful of the pumps were working at the time because, Willie, our infrastructure, not just in New Orleans, but around the country is just dog shit. So, and I'm pretty sure it's like in rural areas like that, it's not going to be a lot of good infrastructure either. A lot of it gets neglected because it's poor areas, and who wants to fix stuff in poor areas, right?
Absolutely. And, we already have crumbling, neglected infrastructure as it is. And, everybody seems to talk about this is what we need to do, but when it push comes to shove, they don't do it.
Well, yeah. And there's a reason why they don't do it is either they're just, they're greedy, or just plain stupid. But that's the thing. It's like, what's the saying? You're either stupid or complicit, right? It's one or the other, and neither one is actually very excusable. Especially if you're somebody in charge of important stuff like infrastructure, and yeah. So Biden, of course, was very slow he just got out there today. I think they just woke him up from his nap, and he finally made it out that way. So,
Well,
but
with Biden,
you go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I said with Biden, he's got more important commitments like giving money to Ukraine and Israel. I mean, we be damned here in America.
Yeah, why do we need stuff here when we could just piss all that money away to Ukraine and Israel, who are Nazis and genocidal maniacs, right? I mean, what are we even talking about, right? Yeah, so and you talk about a lot of this stuff on your show too, on the Willy Bragg show. Let's talk about the Willy Bragg show. You've been you've been doing a good job with that. You've been covering a lot of stuff that's going on, but you also tackle the silly nonsense that goes on in politics. What's some of the more bizarre things you've been covering lately?
Well, just the usual things that makes this country bizarre. I mean, like you got people on the left being called right wing, and you got a false progressive movement that basically calls Dick Cheney an ally. I mean that kind of silliness for starters, and just American political culture, the way it is like I mean. I'm angry at it, but I also want to laugh at it too.
Yeah, it's almost like a laugh to keep from crying kind of thing, or a laugh to keep from, kicking some motherfucker's ass because you don't have bail money and you can't afford to go to jail. So you just laugh instead. Now, you on Braglands last night, were talking about the vice presidential debate. And I kind of covered a little bit of that this morning on Morning Extra. But I tend to stay away from that kind of stuff because I know cats like you dig into it, and I'm not really good at it. I feel like it's like wading through a garbage dump to me, and the fumes of it just make me sick. It makes me nauseous, so I can't really stay in very long. But you have like the gas mask on, and you're able to wade through that and point out all the nonsense. What did you see last night with the vice presidential debates? That anything of importance? Was it all just bullshit?
Okay, I was watching it while I was broadcasting it last time, Braglands. I watched a little bit of it, and once I sobered up last night because I drank a little bit.
Excellent.
So, yeah. I figure, you got to sit there watch a debate. You might as well get drunk, And I don't do that as often as I used to. I even picked up my old cigarette habit again last night temporarily.
They got you smoking now.
Yeah, when I drink, I tend to want to smoke. But what happened was I watched it again, and it was kind of like both sides were full of bullshit, without a doubt. But I would say the only thing that was mildly better about the VP debate versus the presidential debate was the civility factor.
Right.
Yeah. And now I don't really care about civility on one hand, but there might have been probably maybe even a little more substance, but not enough to impress me to choose either Trump or Harris. I mean, obviously, I have my choice. And if it's okay, I'll share my endorsement. I duly endorse Cornel West and Jill Stein, and it's up to y'all. People can vote for whoever they want, but they're my choices. But I'm probably going to vote for Jill Stein next month.
Well, I think we've talked about this before. I have zero faith in the electoral process myself, but like if I were at gunpoint forced to vote for somebody, probably I'd probably say I'd say Jill Stein. But it's to me it's just like I've asked a couple people on the tweeters, and I never got an answer at all from it. Like if let's say out of all against all odds that Jill Stein actually gets elected, right? Let's look at the logistics of it. And I know some people in the chat are probably like big Jill Stein fans. I'm not shitting on her or anything. I don't think she's a bad person. I'm just looking at this from a practical angle. So let's say she gets elected. It's more than likely, if she gets elected, it's going to be by the skin of her teeth, right? It's going to be by the thinnest of margins. She's barely going to get in, right? Which means she's not going to have a political mandate. She's not going to be able to demand of the people in the House and the Senate to do her bidding, right? To do the will of the people, as it were. Because, I mean, that's, like when Reagan got in, that was one thing. Because he just stomped Carter and Mondale the next time. So he had that. But he also, I don't think, he didn't have, I think the Democrats still had hold of the Senate. The Democrats had the Senate for a long time, like 40 years or something like that, right? I think so. But
you see, 1954 to 94 is what they,
yeah, it was about 40 years. It was a long stretch, and but then the Reagan Revolution came along, and well, we're old enough. We're both Gen Xers, 69 babies. That remember that shit too. So okay, so I know it's a long-winded question. So she gets in. What could Jill Stein do?
Well, she'll obviously have Democrats and Republicans facing her in the House and Senate. If she, by some miracle, win the presidential election, I would suspect that she will have some coattails. So there might be some Green Party members in Congress. Not too many. There might be maybe one or two in the House. But no, she would have her hands tied. And you ever heard of a novel called A Very British Coup by Chris Mullins?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, and there was like a mini series that was on on Masterpiece Theater in the early 90s. Well, I suspect what will happen to Jill Stein will be what happened to the character of Harry Perkins. I think that was his name. The main character from A Very British Coup, who became prime minister. Labor government that was actually truly labor in the fictional story defeated Margaret Thatcher, and everybody was trying to bring his government down. They will do that to her. They'll try to bring her government down. So, and they would have done that with Bernie. They would have done that with anybody that's considered even a peer a threat to the establishment.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you make a good point about Bernie too, and a lot of people. I mean. He had a hell of a lot more support than Jill Stein does now, and he still got railroaded in the primary. And we were begging him after 2016, run independent. And he just wouldn't do it. He said, I'm going to fix the Democratic Party from inside. And and he ended up being the bitch to the parliamentarian. And the rest of that story.
He's a disguised blessing. I mean, he's a disguised blessing because he raised the issues, and the issues he raised, and whether people want to admit it or not, we are the children of Bernie Sanders in this online left space. However, we realize what the bullshit is, and we realize that the Democratic Party is an utter failure as far as trying to get things done. So we have to take it from where he was at and just take it from there.
I mean, maybe that was his goal all along, was to be the spark, but then it ended up being, all these people that were united ended up just fracturing into a million pieces too. D says it sends a message. Also, she can use executive orders. And say, I thought about that too, that the executive orders is probably the only power she's going to have, but executive powers are limited. They're limited to the term that you're in, because the next president that comes along can just override those things, because they're not laws. And like I said, I'm not trying to be, the turd in the punch bowl, but we have to, people are putting a lot of energy into Jill Stein. And you got to know the truth, that if she gets in there, all she's going to have is executive orders. And like you said, they're going to be fighting her left and right in the House and Senate because neither one of them want anything to do with any of her ideas because they're all bought and paid for by APAC, the military industrial complex. You know the players.
Yeah.
But I mean, with the executive orders though, what could she do?
Yeah, I mean, she could. I mean, as I said, she could try to do an executive order for Medicare for all, for example, but they would try to do everything they can to not have it implemented, for example. So, I mean, I don't know what the good it would be the use of executive orders anyway, in that regard. But whatever she could do, I would hope she would be able to do as much. Well, when I say much damage to everything, the damage that's being done is to the toxic elements that keep us down. That will actually have some long-term positive effect. But I, I mean, I don't. Right now, my vote for her is a protest vote. It's to send a message. The Democrats punch left, piss on us. So it's like, why should I support a political party that treats Dick Cheney better than Bernie Sanders, whatever we may think of Bernie Sanders?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's just a bastardization. The Democratic Party basically became the moderate Republican Party once people jumped ship. I think that really started around around when Obama got in, right? You started seeing more moderate Republicans going into the Democratic Party, maybe tainting the waters, as it were. And now they're practically indistinguishable with their platforms. Yeah, of course, you've got the was it the low hanging fruit of abortion on the Republican side, of course, but both sides use abortion in different ways. One is like trying to get rid of it and actually did get rid of it to a certain extent, and the other was fundraising off of it for years and didn't do anything about codifying Roe v. Wade when they had 50 years to do that. It just makes them an unserious party when they do that. And now with what has happened with Harris being basically installed as the nominee for the Democrats, no primary, none of that. She was just anointed because she was the vice president, and basically they didn't really have anybody else that, I don't know, that had name recognition or anything like that. So, but I mean, getting back to Jill Stein, I think about like, well, when you want to make changes, you want to make laws, right? You want to be able to make laws. She's not going to be able to do that because they're not going to vote for the laws. And if she tries to do something, she tries to overturn policies and whatnot, they're going to get the 2/3 to override the veto if she vetoes anything. So in essence, there could still be some really shitty laws that come out of her administration that's not her fault, that she's trying to veto, but they're going to override it with the 2/3, right?
That's true, but I think that everything will be so transparent on what's being done against her, and whether even people may not like her program, or what have you. I think it could actually shake the system in many ways if such a thing would happen. This system will be shaken. It could be shaken for the better, or sadly, it could be shaken for the worse too. I mean, Project 2025, which I agree with what some people said about Project 2025, that it's not totally endorsed by Trump and all that. To me, Project 2025 is basically Ronald Reagan's bullshit that still lives amongst us. Nothing new, but we could end up with a dictatorship too, with the two parties. They could just coalesce and yeah, I don't know. Something worse can happen in this country too. So everything's a big question mark.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I will say this about Jill Stein. If she gets in, she could at least maybe postpone uh, some really bad things, right? Because she would be still the commander in chief. And the Congress can't make her go to war, I don't think, right? They can declare war, but they have this thing now where they haven't needed to declare war since 9/11, right? Because of the Patriot Act and whatnot. Basically says we're the world police now, and we can do whatever the fuck we want, so we don't have to declare war. But it's still the commander. She still would be the commander in chief. So, what do you think the odds of her being able to like, you know, stopping like sending munitions? Now, like, okay, let me back up for a second. So, funding to Israel. Let's talk about. I think that's like in law, isn't it? That they have to give them a certain amount. Didn't they pass a law or something like that? But they don't have to give them the extra shit. That's the stuff she could stop, right?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a lot. Just think it's just like one of the things that both parties do is to basically they're basically arguing which party loves Israel more. I
Right.
mean, that's what it comes down to, and and unfortunately, it's because of what happened to Jewish people with the Holocaust and what have you. There's still that little bit of guilt about the international community playing a role in letting that happen. So they think that if they go and hurt Israel's feelings, that history is repeating itself back to the 1930s, and that's not the case. You know, um, so I think that's what happens there, and so there's a bit of a political correctness that exists. So if you're a politician elected and you don't comply by Israel's way, there will be people out there that they will smear you and destroy your reputation as a result.
Yeah, and take away your funding too. Meanwhile, we got Choosy in the comments writing his memoirs. What's up, Choosy? Every time Choosy gets in a chat, man, he does his it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Uh I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I'm one of these people that's like, yeah, I want to see somebody different, but I just don't believe that even a third party uh, is going to make any sort of fundamental change with the current system the way it is, right? I mean, look at what's going on with the what is it, the Longshoremen's Association, the ILA. They've got their strike going on, shutting down the ports from Maine to Texas, right? That's a statement. That's a statement. I think that's the way to go. You got to. It's like, I don't know. I have a few metaphors for this. It's like everybody's fighting over who wants to drive the car, but the engine doesn't work right. Right? You need to fix the engine first before you can even drive the fucking thing. Who cares who the driver is, right? And it seems like the driver of the car right now is driving us into a ditch for their own personal gains. So, do you think in our lifetimes we're going to see like an actual general strike across the country? And if so, what do you think it's going to take for it to actually happen?
That's a very good question because I think the conditions have been. I mean, like for example, COVID and just a lot of other shit that's happened in our society. You would think that a general strike could be plausible, and just I mean, I admire the militancy of labor in places like France that they don't put up with any of this shit. And even though they were defeated, even the labor unions during the days of Thatcher, they sent a message to Thatcher, and they at least caused her some stress. But here in this country, we seem to not be able to do that. But I'm glad what President Doggett said about that. I think that's his name, from the ILA union. He says that I will cripple you, this economy, with this strike, and that's what needs to be taken. There needs to be some labor militancy that takes place, and people just, if they don't, we're going to continue. We're going to continue to. We're going to continue to be, a third world nation in terms of poverty and everything. With a very first world type infrastructure, relatively speaking, what have you. I mean, just and little by little. I mean, I have said this: we're in the 11th term of the Reagan presidency, so that kind of sums it up.
I think D in the chat says we will have full transparency of the a-hole system for public display. I mean, if that hasn't been shown already, I don't know how else we could show it. I mean, if you get somebody like Jill Stein in as just basically someone who's just a whistleblower president, right? Who comes in and exposes everything. Yes, that would be good, but it'd be a little dangerous because, I don't mean to be that guy, but, people tend to not hang around that long whenever they're actually doing stuff that goes against the will of the elites. We got global solidarity in the house too. Good to see you. Like I said.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no. I was just gonna say, like I said, I'm not against her running and doing it. I'm just, my big thing is, it seems like all the energy is going towards third parties instead of going towards a general strike, which I think is needed more. If you have a general strike and you are able to shut everything down and make huge concessions to where we can change the system for the better, then these elections might actually mean something, right? You wouldn't have just the duopoly. You wouldn't even have third parties. You'd have fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth parties. It'd be like Europe. You just have all these people coming, out of nowhere who represent different, factions, I guess, right? And we have different factions here in the United States. It's not just Democrat and Republican, right?
Exactly. And, and I mean, a third party might shake things up a little bit, but it's not going to fix all the problems. And that is certainly true. I mean, UK and Canada has, 3, 4, 5 parties and in their parliament. And, I would say that if they didn't have those parties, it would be a little worse, but it would be they'll be just like us. But, we need to look beyond, I guess you could say, a third party and look more toward general strike. I am totally down with that.
I just wonder how it's going to happen. Like I said, like you said, if the pandemic and you didn't get Medicare for all during the pandemic, of all things, when are you going to get it, right?
And the force to vote was like the way to go. I mean, it made me angry that this was an opportunity, and we might not have gotten a Medicare for all. We might have had a public option, which doesn't go far enough, but it's a little bit better than what we got currently, or even some prescription drug reforms. And again, I didn't mind seeing Nancy Pelosi sweating and having anxiety over the threat of the squad.
Yeah, and that was just a taste. That was just a little bitty taste, and they pissed their pants over. And Bernie was the same way. When Bernie won those first 2 states in the primary, they were shitting their pants, right? That's when they had to, they had to wake up Joe. And Barack was like, "All right, I guess we're gonna go with Joe. Joe, you're up now, Joe." And
I was so angry when that happened.
I was angry that that happened, and I was angry that Bernie didn't just say fuck the Democrat. He's not even a Democrat. He's an independent candidate who ran as a Democrat. He has no loyalty to those motherfuckers. Just because he votes with them a lot of the time, that doesn't mean he is one. At that point, Bernie should have said, just like in Half Baked, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. None of you are cool. I'm out. Right? And that would have been he had the spotlight on him. He could have exposed all the shit. Like you said, like what Dee was talking about, the transparency that Jill Stein would bring. That's what Bernie should have done. He should have just laid it all out. But there's all kinds of conspiracy theories out there that he was roughed up and, he had the bandage on his head, that he was threatened, that his wife was doing some shady shit and they were going to call, all this stuff. And it's like, he
was fearful of becoming the next Ralph Nader, which I think he serves an honorable place in American history. I mean, it's not Ralph Nader's fault that Bush stolen the election in 2000, and it's not Bernie's fault that Hillary was defeated.
Yeah, well, these people just they don't want to admit that they voted for shitty people. They want to think that their vote means something, and I'm sorry, but your vote doesn't mean shit in 2024. It didn't in 2020, and it didn't in 2016 either. All you had was corrupt motherfuckers to choose from. Because that's how it's designed, Who was that? Jared Beck, who had went to court, sued the DNC. And that basically the court says, well, they're a private corporation. They can do whatever they want. They can choose whoever their candidate is. So there is no democracy in the Democratic Party, and in the Republican Party. That you might as well. It's a fucking cult too, right?
It is.
I mean, how did? I don't know. You and I grew up in this. Well, you live in the South, and I grew up in the South. How do you think Trump conned all these Southerners into voting for him?
Well, in the South, he didn't do anything any different than what a Mitt Romney or a John McCain or George W. Bush would have done, and that is just to do the usual little dog whistles, about race, because I do think that a lot of Southerners vote Republican. A lot of white Southerners vote Republican today because of the race issue. They were former Jim Crow Democrats, and they became Republicans, what they call the Southern strategy. He conned a lot of blue collar people up in the North and the Midwest, that they were more Democratic Party aligned, because the Democrats have been shitting on these people for decades. He knew that, and he knew he wasn't going to do anything for these workers, but he'll promise to bring the jobs back and to bring back that, the whole middle class Americana of the 1950s. He kind of projected that as a way of saying, we'll make America great again. And you got Chuck Schumer that went around saying, well, for every blue-collar worker that we lose in these 4 states, we will gain 4 moderate suburban Republicans. I was like, oh, fuck you, Chuck Schumer.
Fuck Schumer. Yeah. I mean, that was the thing. They instead of actually doing things to help people and solidify their base, they said, no, we're gonna dilute it by bringing in these moderate Republicans who don't give a shit about this kind of stuff. Because that basically, when it comes to fiscal policies, Democrats and Republicans are about on the same page. I mean, they all vote for the almost $1 trillion military budget, right? And
you do.
So it's like, except it's like twins, right? You have twins that try to differentiate themselves from each other, right? One will dress a certain way and one will dress another way, and they may have different personalities or something, but they're still fucking twins, right? They're still related. And that's what I think of the duopoly. It's like they're twins, but they're just dressed differently and they're trying to act differently, but they still have the same thought processes. They still have the same internal shit going on. It's very frustrating, Willie. I mean, I like talking to you about politics and stuff, but at the end of the day, it makes me want to drink and smoke too. Smoke crack, not just cigarettes. I want it like a big crack rock whenever I do that. Let's talk about some more lighter stuff, Willie. I mean, it's this kind of stuff. It really. I was doing the news this morning and I got the heartburn, and I don't think it was from the coffee. I think it was from the shit I was reading. So we need some lighter stuff. Last time you were on this show, you talked about Pilot Mountain, right? And Willie, you really caught me off guard. I was not expecting what you told me. And just to remind people, what is the significance of Pilot Mountain in North Carolina, where you're from? What is the significance of Pilot Mountain that you and I both enjoy?
Yeah, well, I mean, literally, when you're driving and you see Pilot Mountain, which is just north of Winston-Salem, it literally looks like a gigantic breast with a nipple on top. That's what I think of.
I'm gonna try to pull up a picture. I should have done this earlier. Hang on a second. So Pilot Mountain in North Carolina, right?
Mhm.
I don't know, man. This let me see something here. Okay. No, open. I hate this sometimes. Sometimes things do not work out the way I want it to. Okay, here we go. So this is Pilot Mountain right there. But it looks like a hairy nipple, doesn't it? Like the areola, there's like a lot of hair around it. Isn't that like a
I mean, just the basic shape with a little nipple on top. I mean, I'm not having a dirty mind or anything, but I mean that's what I'm thinking when I'm driving over there. I'm just like it looks like a breast with a nipple, hardened nipple on.
You know, that reminds me of what was it? One of the it was a Leslie Nielsen movie, one of the Police Squad movies. What was it? What was the name of those movies? Anyway, he was Frank Drebin, and he's driving along, and he says everything reminds me of her. And there was like these two large tanks that were like oil tanks or something with the little things that they looked like titties. So ever since you told me about Pilot Mountain and the little thing on top there, I've just been calling it Titty Mountain, and that's why the name of the show tonight is Return to Titty Mountain.
And that's why on the Andy Griffith show, you hear the town of Mount Pilot, Mount Pilot. I mean, there's no Mount Pilot in North Carolina, but it was just a fictional town. But it's really, a reference to Pilot Mountain, and I'm trying to think of the name of the town. Oh gosh, the name of the real life town in just nearby it. That's where Mayberry is. The fictional town of Mayberry is.
Naked Gun. Thank you, Rick. That's what I was trying to think of. The Naked Gun.
Mount Airy. Mount Airy is what is Mayberry in the TV show.
You said Mount Areola? What?
Mount Airy is the name of the town.
I was going with the Titty Mountain theme, and you said Mount Airy. That's about Areola. Sorry.
So like sure in that town, I mean everything is fixed up like Mayberry. I mean they the shops, the main street, and and all of that. So they even have a Barney Fife lookalike.
Oh really?
Yeah. So
what is it? I'm gonna nip it in the bud. Ange. I used to be able to do a good Don Knotts impression, but those days have kind of fallen by the wayside. But
I took with him. I said, hey, you haven't changed. He said, yeah, not bad for an old guy.
Oh, Don Knotts. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I grew up down south in a small town, and I was one of these Mount Harriola. Thanks, thanks, Rick. I've lived for the last 20 years. I've lived in the three biggest cities in the country, and because I had that city blood in me, right? My dad lived in Chicago for many years and told me all the stories, and I always wanted to get out and see, the country. And I have, to a certain extent, seen a lot of the country, but I do miss the simpler times of the small towns like that, But in the town that I grew up in, there was like you had your Piggly Wiggly, right? You had your Five and Dime, and I think they had a Food Tiger at one point. But then the Walmart came in and just totally took out a lot of those places. And now you have more. It kind of evolved. It was like whenever a Walmart comes into a small town like that, the stores that have like the general merchandise tend to go away, and you have a little more like niche shops and stuff to counteract what Walmart doesn't sell. Do you have that kind of stuff in your area?
Oh, absolutely. Where I live in Smithfield, uh, Selma area in Johnston County, just outside of Raleigh, and like in Selma itself, you got the what used to be the main thoroughfare in town with your gosh, what's the name of that? Um, Department stores and all that you used to find in most towns. It's now been replaced with little antique shops and things of that nature. And so you can go in there and you have, you can buy these, you can buy these antiques or whatever. I mean, it's just, and the place I live is associated with everything that's old and antiquated anyway. So it kind of fits for the town, but Walmart's played a role in that happening.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a way that's kind of a good byproduct of a Walmart coming in. Yeah, you hate to see like the old school shops close like that, but if there's other stores that bring something to the area that hasn't that you don't see very often, like those like the homemade furniture places, like a lot of those came back into style too, because some people who didn't want to buy the cheap shit at Walmart, if they wanted like a solid oak bed frame or a living room suite or something like that, or something of higher quality. That's the thing. It's like Walmart doesn't sell high quality products per se like that. A lot of it's like this paperboard type stuff that's real flimsy. IKEA is kind of the same way too. The prices are fairly reasonable, but you get what you pay for. And it also seems like it makes people want to go into business more because that there's a need for these unique items like that. Did you ever thought about going into a business for yourself at any time in your life?
I thought about going into business for myself, but as I said, it's just you know, right now I'm just looking forward to retirement. Now, I guess you could say that I mean, if this channel that I'm working on picks up or something like that, when I retire, I intend to spend my full time doing this channel as opposed to whenever I get the time to.
Yeah, I hear you. I
Uh,
mean, it's kind of a nice thing to have, like in retirement, that you're able to still speak your mind, but do it to a broad audience with the internet like that. As long as you have decent internet access and your tech works, and you have friends who help you with your tech. Wink. It's always a good thing. So and I look back to like our parents. When they retired. I mean, I think they may have been the last generation that had like good union jobs and worked in shops for like 30-40 years, got the gold watch, the pension and all that stuff. I mean, yeah, you still have union shops that still do that, but it just seems so few and far between now. And so like when Gen X, our generation, when we retire, if we're probably not going to be able to rely on Social Security, and a lot of us don't have a pension or 401k. If the pandemic didn't wipe it out, one of these multiple bank failures where the government bailed out the banks but not the people, it doesn't look good for Gen X. It seems like a lot of us are going to be working until we're dead. You think that's the reality?
It seems to be the reality right now, and it's a little worse for the millennials, and it's going to definitely be worse for generation with Gen Z. I mean, I think with Generation X, some of us got what the boomers got, but some of us are in the losing end, and some of us are in between, not having as good as the boomers, but maybe not in the worst case scenario that the millennials would be in. I sort of fall in that in between in that regard because, you know, there's a lot of things a lot of opportunities that my parents had that didn't quite come my way, or life kind of works the way it work for me. But I'm thankful I do have a pension to look forward to when I retire, and of course I have inheritance too. That's also helpful. So but there are people who are just going to be in misery, and I really feel sorry for them. And it's why I have the politics I have, to try to reverse in a good way what was one of the better times for America.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about earlier, or we talked about earlier that that we definitely need a general strike. And once we get in our 60s, well, once we get in our 70s and 80s, it's going to be hard for us to be out there on the picket line, right? And it's going to be up to the millennials. It's going to be up to Gen Z to pick up the mantle. I feel regret that I wasn't more politically active when I was younger. I think a lot of us in Gen X were dazzled by the 80s, and the thought was it from Wall Street, the movie Wall Street, greed is good. That got planted into our heads, and everybody thought they were going to be a millionaire if they just picked themselves up by the bootstraps, worked hard. And yeah, I mean, a lot of us did work hard, but it turns out the pay didn't match the hard work, and the benefits didn't match the hard work, because more and more of these companies were starting to cut corners. And even if they got bailed out by the government, all they did was just take that money and do stock buybacks and artificially inflate the prices of their companies. And that's what we're seeing right now. You're seeing all these companies that are just like, oh, we're doing so well. It's like, yeah, well, you're laying off all these people and your companies are shit, but you're buying these stocks and inflating the price to make it look like you're doing well. And it's not. It's just it's all a house of cards. It seems like it's going to eventually crash down, and who's going to be the victims? It's going to be us.
Yeah, the future is very bleak in that regard. I like to think that when I say that the future is bleak, that people have said that about the past, and somehow things turn around for the better. I would like to think that way, but sometimes I get pessimistic, so and get very doomer like. So, and
Well,
it's easy to fall into.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's being optimistic, and then there's being delusional. You know what I mean? It's like you just hope against hope that it's going to happen, and if we just vote in the right people, if we just do this, we just do that, and we've tried all that, and for one thing, they won't they won't let us vote in the right people, because the right people are the ones that the establishment hates, right? Like Bernie was the best shot we had, and you, like you've said on your show before, that around the world he'd be considered a moderate. He wouldn't even be considered left wing.
Yeah, I mean, even in the Labor Party, he wouldn't be in the Jeremy Corbyn wing of the party. He certainly wouldn't be in that asshole wing, Keir Starmer, but he'd be just a generic Labor MP, for example. Which they're going to be to the left of the Democrats, but that's not really saying a lot now these days.
Right. Yeah. I mean, none of it. And I love how the press or whoever will call them progressives in the party. There's no progressives in the Democratic Party. They're all gone. And the ones that are progressive are either bought and paid for, or they're fucking pussies.
Yeah. The last two statements you made, pussies and being bought, that's exactly what happened to them, because the Democrats that we're supposed to support, they have been can't support them anymore. I get so angry every time I hear AOC yapping about something, and I'm just like, I feel like it's a slap in the face what she's done to the left. And notice that you don't hear even right-wing Republicans talking about her as this, neo-Maoist or whatever concoction they used to have in their head about her. They don't even talk shit about her anymore because everybody realized she's gotten bought and paid for. She's Nancy Pelosi 2.0 without all the wine around her.
Right. Oh, the wine's coming. I'm pretty sure. Or you know what? The kids vape now. They do the vape, so she probably has a whole thing of vapes. But it's these idiots that's calling, like Trump calling Kamala Harris a communist. Really? Like, and then
I know where that's from, actually. Her father, who does not support Kamala Harris, Donald Harris, who's an economics professor at Stanford, is a bona fide leftist, and he does not support Kamala Harris, and she doesn't support. They don't speak to each other or anything over political differences, because actually Donald Harris is the real thing. He was the economic advisor to Prime Minister Michael Manley of Jamaica during the 1970s and 80s. A government that the CIA tried toppling in the same way they tried toppling Venezuela, and unfortunately successfully Chile in the early 70s.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. It's like they're gaslighting people, making you think that, oh well, her father was a very left wing, so she must be. And of course she's not. She's a fucking cop, for God's sakes. She was trying to put kids' parents in jail in California if their kids were skip school or something like that. And of course the slave workers in the prisons there too. She was all about that.
Exactly.
It's just so mind-boggling. I know we've been propagandized for years and years and years, but how are we going to get out of this? How are we going to break out of the propaganda bubble? How can we convince people? Is it just consistency, or what are we going to do?
We're here, you and I, doing this, and it's going to take independent media with a progressive real left-leaning view to do this. And when I say left-leaning, I don't mean that we promote leftism just to promote leftism, but we do it with truth and honesty, because we know what needs to be done to fix things. And so that's why we exist in this forum, because we see what corporate media's done, and they're all corporate, whether it's MSNBC, even on their best days, which seems rare now, and or Fox News or Newsmax, which is Satan itself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's really, that's the thing about independent channels. You really have to watch them closely, because a lot of times they're pushing the same message as the mainstream media. And I just wish more channels in this space talk more about general strikes than they do about pissing contests between actors in a play, basically.
I hear you.
I really hope that's the case. Well, I hope you continue your crusade, as it were, to getting the truth out to people. I'll try to do my best on this end. Willie, we're at the top of the... What's that?
You do a great job.
Aw, you're just saying that because you're a sweet person. Just for that, you know what, Willie? You get one more shot at the nip. There you go. Delicious. Look, oh, it must be cold up there. Willie, we're at the top of the hour, and we usually only go an hour on this show because I try to be somewhat professional on this gig when I have my fine guests on here like yourself. So do me a favor, plug yourself, plug all your stuff, tell us where people can find you, the whole 9 yards there.
Yeah, Willy Bragg. I'm on YouTube. youtube.com/@Willy Bragg TV. I'm on Twitter, same thing, @WillyBraggTV, and Facebook. Anyway, the usual places. Go on my channel, you'll see all my links, and so there.
All right.
And yeah.
And if you're lucky and you're in the area, you'll find Willie climbing Titty Mountain in search of that elusive, delicious breast milk from the North Carolina region that only North Carolina can produce. Hey, one more thing. The Brown Mountains, right? The Brown Mountains, those are in North Carolina, right? You ever heard of those?
Brown
The Brown Mountains?
Brown Mountains.
Maybe that's Tennessee, or I'm thinking of the Smokies. Anyway, a lot of UFO activity around the Brown Mountains. I just wanted to mention that to
Well, I
the.
know that the North Carolina mountains, they have these mysterious lights that
Yes,
nobody knows what it
that's
is.
what I think. Those are the Brown Mountains. I think that's what they call that area. And yeah, it's these globes, these little orbs and stuff that hover over. The people have seen them. So it's kind of like out west near Mount Rainier. They have a lot of UFO activity out there, and so I'm sure that's North Carolina's hot spot there. So if you're ever around that area, just keep an eye out. There may be some UFOs.
Yeah, I do believe there's life on other planets. I don't know if they came here, but I don't think it's beyond the imagination to say that there's life on other planets, and whether they came here or not, we don't know.
Well, we're still looking for intelligent life on this planet, so we need to find that first before we start looking outside, right? Willie, I appreciate you so much. Hang on just a second. I'll give you a proper goodbye here in just a second. Let me just say goodbye to everybody else. I want to thank everybody that showed up tonight. Game.film in the house. Good to see you, brother. Global Solidarity. I know D was here. Let's see, who else was here? Chuck's Intergalactic UFO Show, and Rick and Max. I believe Desert Mantis was here. Miguel. Let me say around the world in DFS. Steve Wolfbrandt. And who else was here? I think that was it. But if you were here and I missed you, don't worry. I'll aim better next time. I want to thank Willie for all the efforts that he does. Make sure to check out his show. It's usually on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I believe Braglands is usually on Tuesdays. Be sure to check those shows out. Willie is a good person, comes from a good place, and and in my book, that's really what matters. We need more people like that in this space. I will be back Friday morning. Yes, is today Wednesday? Yes, Friday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. I keep saying p.m. because it's nighttime. 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Mountain, and 7 a.m. Pacific time. Don't forget, Around the World with D and Friends will be on in a couple hours, so be sure to check out that chick, as it were. She's a cool chick, so I think it's okay to call her chick, just because she's cool. I appreciate all of you. Love each and every one of you. If you want to donate to the show, we have links below in the description. We do Patreon. You can do $1 a month. I hate asking. I don't like to be that guy, but I guess you got to ask. And if you don't have the bread, that's fine. Just share out the links. I appreciate it. And share out the show too. Tell your friends. If you don't have any friends, get some, because we need more people in the mix. We're all in this together, as they say. Have a great night, folks. Be safe. Peace out. Word to your mother.
1, 2, 3, 4.